morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Minnesota Senate Health and Human Services Finance and Policy Committee. It's Thursday, March 20th, 2025, and we do have a quorum present. We have many bills on the agenda today. We have 8 bills, I believe, or 8 or 9. And so I really, we need to keep things fairly brief as possible, not to cut off discussion, but if you have testimony that is seconding somebody else's testimony, if you can kind of keep it briefer. We do have a pretty hard stop at 10:30 today. So first bill on the agenda, Senate File 1025, Senator Abeler.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And just to be, we can do this brief. This bill is not in its final form. But it's a really important topic. Who gets to keep the Social Security money for a child whose parents have passed away or are no longer there? And there was a report that we had with this from the department, and I think a lot of us find that to be, frankly, offensive. Nobody else has to pay for their own stuff. And so the A1 amendment, there was a bill we put in talking about a trust and all that, and that is far beyond the capacity of this legislature to solve this year, given everything that's going on, multiple committees and all. And so it was my thinking that if we could at least find a way to keep the money with the families who are still with the child who's still their guardian, the guardianship thing, that would be a start. I was also hoping that we could begin to get an accounting for the money that the counties are spending. I found out that already is going to happen on July 1st. So that's moving along. What remains that we're not going to even be able to address today is what about the other children who are on their own? What about a trust fund and all that? And I will just admit that the A1 amendment moves the bill in the right direction, at least to narrow it down. It is an inadequate amendment. And the testifiers will be brief about that. But we're going to keep working on it, and hopefully by the time we get to markup that this could be something we could put into the bill. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll move the A1 amendment as the author's amendment.
Senator Abeler moves the A1 amendment as an author's amendment. Members, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The A1 amendment is adopted. And
so, Madam Chair, you heard us talking out there, and it is my full intent to make this better than the current situation. The amendment, if you it's a bunch of words on paper that moves. It was technical advice from the department. We need some more advice, and we need some more dialogue. The advocates were not part of that dialogue to start with, and so we'll get there. So maybe if they briefly want to just offer their comments, and then we'll move along just like 1 minute or something about whatever you want to say. Go ahead.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Murphy, and please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Okay, thank you. My name is Huang Murphy. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Again, my name is Huang Murphy. I'm the founder of Foster Advocates, which I ran for 5 years, and I'm now the CEO of People Serving People. However, I'm not speaking in that capacity today. Today, I'm speaking to you as someone that was in foster care, someone that was a ward of the state, someone that was your child. And it's also very strange to be seeing you all from this vantage point because, it wasn't that long ago that I didn't imagine myself in this room or even here at all. I entered foster care when I was 8 years old because a teacher saw that I was a kid that was in danger. One of my earliest memories was when I was 5 or 6, and I was sitting on an apartment patio wearing just a green sweatshirt that I had chewed through because I was so hungry. If the story ended just there, the state gets to be a hero. You saved me. But they didn't. Because this is a state that also took my brother's Social Security benefits. He is now homeless, living in Denver, and I haven't heard from him in 6 months. And I hope that he's okay. A recent report said that this is the best state to raise your children. I don't think that's true if you are a foster youth. And that's because when a child enters foster care, due to the death of their parents, we take their Social Security death benefits. We make them pay for their own care. when a child enters care in this way, it is especially harmful because they enter with a solemn duty that is then entrusted to us to do right by them in their parents' stead. We fail that promise when we then take the money that was meant for them and we use it. And not for their direct care. We use it for generalized county dollars. Just last year, we had 2 testifiers, AJ and Ada, come speak. 2 years ago, when we first worked on this issue, Ada spoke then too. Ada was separated from her aunt by this very state because she was misusing the Social Security death benefits by using the money on her other children. The state's doing that right now, but there is no power that can take the state's kids away. There is no one else. There is no one left. But there are all of you. You all have the power to stop this right now. But I've been told it is too complex. I've been told that it is too expensive. But we do complex things all the time. We created a whole new agency that was way more complex. I just don't believe that same agency then telling us that it's too hard to care for our children appropriately. And I know we have a structural deficit looming, but that doesn't make it okay to steal from children because of our budgeting and planning. I'm here to help. I would like to keep working on this language. I really do support the intention here, but we do have a chance to stop this. And I hope that you all do. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Can you please state your name for the record and begin your testimony?
Yeah, thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Hannah Planalp. I'm the Assistant Ombudsperson with the Office of the Foster Youth Ombudsperson. I'm also a foster. I lived in a group home and then became homeless during high school after a failed reunification. We prepared our agency's testimony considering the original bill language, so we haven't fully prepared a response to the amendment, which doesn't address the harm we're hearing from fosters. I'm still going to read our testimony because our function as an agency is to highlight the priorities and areas of concern for Minnesota's foster youth. Our office was established in 2022 after the advocacy efforts of fosters here in our state who are asking for oversight and support as they navigate their way through foster care. We opened in May of 2024 to provide support and oversight for 10,000 children and youth. Our agency's acronym is OOFY, OOFY. Our mission is to listen, inform, to take action, and make recommendations to improve the lives of all Minnesota foster youth, ensuring they receive the highest standard of care. We are encouraged to see the critical issue of conserving federal benefits for foster youth continues to receive the attention that it rightfully deserves. Over the past few years, our state has heard from a wide variety of stakeholders, including fosters themselves, foster serving organizations, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Through these conversations, testimonies, and the comprehensive 2-year study on the issue, a theme was present. Fosters deserve to be notified about their eligibility for the funds and have them set aside in a trust. The troubling outcomes for fosters that I'm sure you hear about frequently, high rates of homelessness, instability, lack of normalcy, are all based around this issue of financial security. Setting aside federal benefits is an important first step in ensuring that they are not deprived of what is rightfully theirs. When Minnesota intervenes in a foster's life, we have a responsibility to ensure they receive the benefits they are legally and ethically entitled to. We're hopeful that Minnesota will follow the growing trend of addressing this harmful practice. Nationally, 31 states have taken some form of action to address this adverse practice. By remedying this, we can create lasting improvements in the lives of those who serve and ensure that fosters' most vulnerable children have the financial foundation they need to thrive into adulthood. We believe fosters have a right to access their federal benefits and should be the sole beneficiary of these funds, especially given the known likelihood of placement, caregiver, and worker changes during their time in foster care. Thank you for your consideration.
That's very good.
Thank you. And I have Stacy Hennon listed as well. Did she wish to testify? Good morning. Welcome to the committee, and please state your name for the record and begin.
Thank you, Chair Wiklund and members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify on Senate File 1025. For the record, my name is Stacy Hennon. I'm the Executive Director of Western Prairie Human Services and the Director of Traverse County Social Services, and I am the legislative lead for the Minnesota Association of County Social Services Administrators, or MACSA. And thank you, Senator Abeler, for addressing this very important issue. So Senate File 1025, the amendment addresses post-permanency concerns, specifically in 360D, which we really appreciate. We'd like to continue working with you and members of the legislature to ensure counties have the flexibility they need to address the nuanced and complicated cases that we have. This bill mentions assessing for SSI, and currently there is not a standardized tool for assessing for eligibility for SSI and RSDI eligibility determinations. Counties are not currently best equipped to determine if someone is eligible for SSI across all 87 counties. We certainly work through that process with our mental health and disability clients, but a large amount of our placements are child protection. Anything that requires us to apply for all children or assess for application for children for SSI would be well outside of the range of our expertise and capacity. So while we would be interested in hearing options for that, we don't believe we'd be best positioned to do it. We want to assist youth in financial stability whenever possible, but there are limits to our expertise and capacity. MACSA believes that all youth, not just the estimated 7% that are impacted by this, should have strong, solid supports to move forward into adulthood, and that we need to have safeguards in place for asset limits and eligibility for adults when they head into adulthood, especially for waivers and SNAP benefits, because we do know that when they head into adulthood, if they have too much in assets, that will negatively impact their ability to have access to waivers and certain benefits. So we think that needs to be addressed, and that this is a very complicated interplay, and it really deserves future attention before decisions are made. We support the recommendations in the comprehensive analysis in this area by the Management Analysis Division. I think it really did focus on how complicated this becomes, not just about how counties use those dollars, but what those dollars mean for children as they become 18, and how that can impact them as well, and how many of them could possibly be on other services that could be impacted by that. So again, thank you for bringing this bill, and we look forward to working with you in the legislature to address the aforementioned areas.
Thank you. Senator Abeler, any further comments before we open it for questions?
No, we'll just move along take comments, and this is obviously a work in progress, so thank you.
Members, do you have any questions or comments about the bill? Senator Kupec.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Abeler. Advocates, I know you've been here before. You've been in front of higher education as well, advocating for the foster youth. So thank you for the work you're having to do, and I'm sorry that you have to keep coming back here. And Senator Abeler, anything you can do to move this along and get this in the order it needs to be. We need to finish this up and get this done. So I
Thank you.
cheer you on and willing to help with anything you need to. Thank you.
Any other member questions? Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, I will just echo my thanks to the testifiers for your persistence, for being here today, for telling your story so powerfully, for demanding change. Thank you, Senator Abeler, for your work on this. Perhaps this is complicated, as you said, but we need to figure this out. And so I sincerely hope that happens, and those who are, have a hand in this and are willing to be at the table to figure it out, because that's what needs to happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I appreciate your continuing to work on this. It's a very challenging area, and I do think that if there is a way that you can keep working and come to some agreement on some language that will work this session, I think that's really important. Any final thoughts, Senator Abeler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sometimes you pull a thread and it just keeps on coming. In this one, you pull a thread, it changes colors. And the complexity of this, it's ironic on the county's testimony that if you actually help these young people get a trust account, you may actually make them ineligible for what will help them do better elsewhere. It's like, so if we could find a way at least to get a stake in the ground and deal with helping families keep the money so they can keep their rent going, so they don't become homeless while they have their child. I mean, it's just really hard, and I totally appreciate the testimony of the advocates here, and it's not moving in the House at all. So if it's going to happen, it's going to be here, and I think there's no safer place for that. So thank you for the encouragement. We will, but some things are wrong. Anyway, and so we're trying to be right today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to the testifiers. Senate File 1025 as amended is laid over for possible inclusion. Next on the agenda, we have Senate File 1013. Senator Boldon. Senator Boldon, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am grateful to be before you with Senate File 1013, which is funding for the Head Start program. So I want you to imagine a bright, eager 4-year-old named Mia. She's full of curiosity, always asking questions about the world around her. But Mia faces a challenge. Her family struggles to make ends meet, and without access to a quality early education, she's at risk of falling behind before she even sets foot in a kindergarten classroom. This is where Minnesota's Head Start makes a difference. For decades, Head Start has been a lifeline for low-income families, providing high-quality preschool education, nutritious meals, essential health services, and other family supports to children like Mia. But today, children remain unable to access Head Start programs due to limited funding. Head Start does more than prepare children for school. It empowers entire families. Parents receive job training, parenting support, access to vital social services, creating stability at home. Yet underfunding means families in need are unable to access these important programs. Head Start participation leads to significant benefits for children. According to repeated studies over the past decade of Minnesota's Head Start programs, children who attended Head Start have higher school attendance, spending an average of 10 more days in school per year than their peers. They also experience fewer school moves, likely due to Head Start's comprehensive, multi-generational support model that promotes family stability. Academically, Head Start students outperform their same grade peers on the MCA assessments in both math and reading from 3rd through 8th grade, demonstrating the program's lasting impact on learning. Child assessment data shows that 4-year-olds in Head Start experienced an average 70-point gain from fall to spring, with 70% meeting or exceeding the kindergarten readiness benchmark. And so, members, we know that investments in early childhood education pays dividends for generations to come. This is a proven program that impacts not just children, but entire families. So we have an opportunity to continue to be sure that program has resources so that kids can access it. And we do have some testimony, Madam Chair. I also would just mention that this is a critical time for Minnesota to be investing in Head Start when their funding at the federal level has been very much in question as of late.
Thank you. And on Zoom, we have a couple testifiers. First, we have Jelaine Shooter. If you could please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jelaine Shooter for the record. And first of all, I'd like to thank the committee for your past support of Head Start. My name is Jelaine Shooter, and I'm the Family and Community Engagement Manager for the Head Start and Early Head Start program in Rochester, Minnesota. I have worked for Head Start for over 12 years and in the early childhood field for over 30 years. The increased funding for Head Start would not only benefit the state overall, but would provide our program with the opportunity to serve more infants, toddlers, and preschoolers in our center-based program, and then also serve more pregnant moms, infants, and toddlers in our home-based program. We would also be able to continue to provide the whole family services to families through home visiting, which is an added benefit to Head Start. We are currently serving 503 children with our federal and state funding for the children in Rochester and Albert Lee and our Early Head Start Child Care Partnership programming. We have 114 children on the Head Start waiting list and 151 children on the Early Head Start waiting list. Over the years, I have seen firsthand the benefits of Head Start, not only for the children, but for their families as well. As a whole family program, home visitors work alongside families to provide support to families in achieving goals, such as obtaining housing, getting a GED, finding employment, assisting families with getting their child's physicals, dentals, dental treatment, providing their families with healthier eating, nutrition. Some of our families have gone through the Parent CDA program and have become staff for our program, which has really helped in the crisis in regards to staffing. The additional funding would allow families in our program the ability to go to work. And we know that there is a child care crisis right now. And then as they can go to work, they know that their children are in a safe and quality early child care setting. Finding child care is difficult, and it would not only meet the needs of the families, but also those businesses and the places of employment that those families work at. Our program has the ability and the infrastructure to serve more children if more funding were available. In closing, I want to thank you all again for your continued support and past support of Head Start, and I would like to ask you for increased funding for Head Start.
Thank you very much. Next on Zoom, I have Amanda Mata. If you could please state your name for the record and begin your testimony. We can see that you are online, but we do not have any audio, so I don't know if Amanda, if you are trying to speak, if you can unmute and see if we can hear you. If not, I guess we'll move on. We have one more in-person testifier, and if Amanda lets us know that she's available, we'll go back to her. Alexandra Fitzsimmons. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the committee, and please state your name for the record and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Alexandra Fitzsimmons, and I'm the Senior Policy Director with Children's Defense Fund Minnesota. CDF Minnesota advocates for policies and programs that improve the well-being of children and increase the economic security of families. We focus particular attention to Minnesota children who have been pushed to the margins, children living in poverty, Black children, American Indian children, children from communities of color, and children living with disabilities. Head Start is proficient in seeing to the developmental needs of many of our young children who have been pushed to the margins. And that's why I'm here today to urge you to prioritize funding for Head Start and to support this bill. Head Start, as you know, is a critical program for young children, parents, caregivers, families, neighborhoods, communities, and our state. Arguably, it's one of the most important and impactful societal and educational public investments our state and our nation have made in young children and our communities. When Head Start was launched 60 years ago, the idea of providing these comprehensive services with health and nutrition and education to the most vulnerable children and their families was revolutionary. And in many ways, it still is. The Head Start model, which is built on evidence-based practices, is constantly evolving to meet the needs of local communities effectively and successfully. During fiscal year 24, Minnesota's Head Start program served 13,000 children, including 1,226 children who are homeless. 545 children who are in foster care, and 5,817 dual language learners, preparing them for success in school and in life. That being said, more than 23,000 Minnesota children were eligible for Head Start during that same service time period. Research has repeatedly demonstrated that high-quality early childhood care and education programs like Head Start generate a significant return on investment. For every dollar invested in Head Start children and families, at least $9 in benefits is realized through increased earnings and decreased public and social supports. And most importantly, the benefits to children last a lifetime. From the greater school attendance and elementary school success that we just heard from Senator Boldon, to graduation rates being increased, college attendance, employment stability, and increased wages and positive parenting, the things that last through a lifetime. We urge you to support investing in Head Start's dedicated and proven work that continues to unlock the doors of opportunity for children and families across Minnesota. Thank you for your dedication to the children of Minnesota.
Thank you. And we noticed, Amanda, that you turned your video on. If you can state your name and proceed with your testimony, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Amanda Mata, and I apologize. I was not able to get my phone to work. So I first off want to start and say thank you for taking the time to listen to us today and listen to my testimony. I am a parent of a Head Start and an early Head Start child, and I am a mom of 4 who have gone through the Head Start process. And I can tell you that our family reaps some of the benefits that are part of Head Start and early Head Start. My 2-year-old can count to 10 in English and Spanish, and knows the ABCs forwards and backwards, which I don't even know backwards. So just to see the way that they thrive every day is amazing. And my daughter is going into kindergarten this fall, and she is well ahead of others her age. My middle schooler, my 4th grader is doing reading and math at a middle school level, and he's the only one in his 4th grade class. And I attribute that to the dedication of Head Start. Besides for the educational concept, they are there to meet my needs as a mom if I have questions, or if I need help in other resources like budgeting, or where we can go to get more food, or other questions I have. If my home visitor doesn't know, she will reach out to others. I really feel it is not just a group or a department, but rather a family. We meet monthly for family engagement hours that my kids enjoy. They see kids that they don't normally see. I see other parents, and the home visitors are there still. So it's more like one big family, and my kids always look forward to going to school and learning new things, and they wouldn't be where they are today, and we wouldn't be where we are today without Head Start and early Head Start, and I just can't praise them enough. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions about the bill? No? Well, Senator Boldon, I really think Head Start, the program, and all of the things that have been discussed are really benefits. I wish that we were able to get more of the kids who are able to access it, to get them access. So I appreciate your bringing this bill forward, and Senate File 1013 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Next, Senator Boldon, you have Senate File 2346. Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we're going to continue talking about support for children. This bill is around youth intervention programs. And I'm going to just, we've got some great testifiers. I also will point members to there are 40 letters in your packet in support of this. So just 3 things I want to talk about, benefits of this program. Youth intervention programs work, and they keep people out of the juvenile justice system. Extensive research shows that when people develop protective factors, also known as external supports and internal strengths, they are more likely to succeed in education, careers, and responsible citizenship. There is much data to bear that out. 2, youth intervention programs save taxpayer money. It is far less costly to invest in this way versus incarceration, which could occur later down the road. And 3, the needs in this space far exceed the current funding. The most recent request for proposals in 2024 had roughly 13 million available grants for this current biennium, but youth-serving organizations across the state requested 19 million. So these are proven programs that benefit children. We know that, and we are just not meeting the needs. So there's an opportunity there. So with that, Madam Chair, I will hand it over to our testifiers.
Thank you. First, is it Paul Maye? I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. Please state your name for the record.
Madam Chair, you're very close, and sometimes I consider that really good. So
Okay.
we'll just go with that.
And go ahead and state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Paul Munir. I am the Executive Director of the Youth Intervention Programs Association. We're a statewide association that works with organizations that support young people that are likely to get involved with the juvenile justice system. And I certainly appreciate your desire for us to be brief, and I will do my best to accommodate that. I could probably talk for hours about the importance of this stuff, but my goal today is to just briefly say hi to all of you. We've been doing this work for a long time, and I feel bad. I don't know a lot of you like we knew the people in public safety. So this is a new, exciting adventure for us. And I will just introduce myself. I am a psychologist by trade. I worked 17 years as a lead of a therapeutic team in the largest school district in the state of Minnesota. And we saw the kids that were bumping into the juvenile justice system every day. And we know we can make progress with these kids. And I will tell you, too, I want to demystify and just simplify really what youth intervention is and what I think the secret to so much of the things that are important to our society today is that so many of these young people don't have somebody in their life that they can truly trust and know that they deeply care for them. And so our programs, regardless if they're police departments, regardless if they're mentoring programs or mental health agencies, their main objective is just to build a trusting relationship with a young person. And I think we can all think back to our childhoods. We probably had somebody that we could lean on and trust that when we have an issue or concern or our behaviors are getting us into trouble, we're making decisions that aren't for our own best interest in mind. That's what these programs do. They connect with young people. And the beautiful thing is it doesn't have to cost a ton of money to do that. The average cost for a young person to be in a youth intervention program through state dollars is $245 a year. So these are small, community-based local programs that you give them $1, they figure it out how to turn it into $1.75 or $2. Because they have to have local support. There's a one-to-one match, so a program can't get state funding unless it is viable in their own community first. The community has to say, we want this, we need this, and that is the goal of what youth intervention programs do. The last thing I'll just say, and then I'll be quiet because I know you want us to be brief, is there's a difference between the Youth Intervention Program grant, which is what Senator Boldon is presenting here. That grant program was started in 1976. It's been around for decades. But when that program first started, the original grantees realized this is such a vital thing that we have to do in the state of Minnesota. These kids that we know that are at risk of going into the juvenile justice system, we all benefit if they stay out of it. And those original grantees formed an association. So there's the Youth Intervention Program Grant, which is the state funds it. We don't administer the funds. And then there's the Youth Intervention Programs Association, and that's what I'm the director of. It started with a handful of people. We now have 400 organizations that all support young people that are part of our community, and they're all just doing phenomenal work, and they meet the young people where they're at. Like I said, whether it's in a mental health office, a park and recreation program, a police department mentoring program, whatever it is, we just want to meet these kids somewhere and develop some level of connection with them in the community. Because if they're not connected, they're either going to get into trouble by doing antisocial behavior, or they're going to go inwards and they're going to develop mental health issues or start using chemicals. None of this is rocket scientists. We, as human beings, need to be connected with others. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. And Ms. Beasley, please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Nikki Beasley. Good morning, esteemed members of the committee. Again, I'm Nikki Beasley, and I'm the Executive Director at the Conflict Resolution Center in Minneapolis. For 41 years, CRC has been dedicated to breaking down barriers and building bridges to honor every person's voice and their right to equity. Our mission is to create spaces for transforming conflict into opportunity and harms into healing. CRC has provided conflict resolution and restorative services in community, in schools, courts, between family members, property owners and tenants, victims and offenders, and organizations. CRC's youth programs engage youth holistically, supporting healing, empowerment, productive conflict resolution, positive decision-making, and connection in school and community. CRC is one of 96 organizations that receive YIP funding. The YIP grant has been instrumental in supporting our mission by funding essential resources and activities. This financial support has significantly enhanced our ability to make a positive impact on the lives of the young people we serve. We strongly advocate for the full funding of SF 2346, as it is crucial for the continued success of our programs. Your support ensures that we can continue to provide valuable opportunities and resources to the youth in our community, helping them to achieve their full potential. Fully funding the YIP grant aligns with our shared goal of nurturing the next generation of leaders. We are deeply grateful for your consideration and commitment to investing in the future of our youth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Members, do you have any questions or comments about the bill? Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Boldon. Really appreciate you all coming to introduce yourself more to this committee. I hope we'll have a deep relationship because I've followed the YIP program in public safety. It's a critical investment that we make that really values our youth rather than looking at them as sort of a disposable thing. So really appreciate the work you all are doing. I think this program is fantastic, and the more that we can support it, we should.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member comments or questions? Seeing none, as Senator Port mentioned and as the testifier mentioned, this committee, this is coming to this committee now as part of the DCYF changes and programs that that moved to that agency. So I'm looking forward to that as well, learning more about the programs that are newer to us. So thank you for bringing this bill forward. Did you have any final comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to speak about the transition, so thank you for covering that. I will just say, while this is new to our committee, as was mentioned, this has been around for decades and is a proven way to help children in our state. And we have opportunity to do that, and I hope we can continue to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. And so Senate File 2346 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you. And now we will go to my bill, Senate File 2042.
Madam Chair, you have an A1 authors amendment.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have an author's amendment, and I would move the A1 amendment.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The A1 is adopted. To Senate File 2042 is amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate File 2042 relates to developing a youth programming study, and I appreciate being able to present this today to kind of add on to other discussions about youth programming. This bill was brought forward because in my district and around the state, families are struggling with the approximately 2,000 hours of time youth have every year outside of school, including many hours that parents are working. We know that demand for after-school and summer programs for youth is extremely high, and many families are out of luck if they can't afford them. The state provides funding for a number of youth programs and recently revived one-time funding for after-school community learning grants that run through 2027. The purpose of this bill is to help policymakers understand the disjointed and underfunded landscape around youth programming, which has consequences for families. The bill directs the Department of Children, Youth, and Families to conduct a statewide needs assessment for out-of-school time and youth programming using data and a qualitative community engagement process. It requires a report to the chairs and ranking members of legislative committees with jurisdiction over children, youth, and families. That includes findings from the needs assessment and finance and policy recommendations to expand access to youth programming. We will be working with the administration on modifying or developing the language in the coming weeks. And I have expectations that we will continue to modify the language over the next couple of weeks as there needs to be some changes to it. And with that, I would like to turn it over to my testifiers.
Yes. Very good. Mr. Fullman, introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Brian Fullman. I'm lead organizer with the Barbershop and Black Congregation Cooperative with Isaiah, where we recently launched the United for Youth campaign alongside the Muslim Coalition of Isaiah. As a base-building organization that practices the art of building relationships with community, our teams did hundreds of listening sessions with Minnesotans around the state, which brought us right here. Before we go any further, I just want to thank you, Chair Wiklund. We talked, you was right on board with this, and I truly, truly do appreciate your leadership. And thank the many members of this committee who have actually jumped on board and supported this bill. What we heard over and over again, listening to families and parents, was a deep concern about the state of our community and the overwhelming need to stage a major intervention with our youth. Specifically, concerned that our youth are getting left behind with little to no support in their development and no real investment outside of their homes. I was one of those kids. There are the conditions that we create, These are the conditions that we create that open up doors for trouble because there are just not enough productive activities to do after school or in the summertime. I myself understand the need for youth programs. I was once myself a recipient of good youth programs and actually felt really good about myself. 12 or 13, 10 and 11, we had a basketball team that I used to be really excited about and go to the park. It was free. In saying that, those programs left my neighborhood with the blink of an eye. And let me just go off script. I internalized that like we were not prioritized. Like we didn't deserve to have a program that was free for the entire year. And from that, I started to look in the mirror and see actually a different person. Somebody who the state I then resided in just didn't care and prioritize me. I just want to say that for the record. I internalized this divestment in my neighborhood park that I wasn't worth the trouble. That there were kids far more worthy of the programs, but not in my neighborhood. That was the start of a painful journey for me. We have incredible assets in our state, parks, libraries, schools, and organizations. And yet we are seeing in our communities rec centers with the lights off, parks with 6 and 7 kids in them. And right now, if I'm being frank, the origin of the campaign started in Minneapolis. And then I propositioned other organizers, and then we did this research across the state, these listening sessions. And the parks used to be a thriving place for our kids. And now they're understaffed. The equipment is wore down. Wood coming up on some of the floors in the parks. No thriving programs where kids are running through the parks happy or any kind of after-school programs, but just one in every neighborhood. Parents not understanding what is accessible to them, what's affordable to them, and just assuming that they do not have programs. The parents are fighting to get their children in open slots for these schools and summer programs that are affordable. But where they're at, where's the communications? Congregations and mosques are doing what they can to provide spaces and activities for young people, but it's not enough. I'm excited about what I even see in my church and the way kids are developed. The young get jobs right away in the church, and they start to actually have confidence and believe in themselves. But we just don't have enough. Some communities are building elaborate destination centers for sports tourism, but they have no programming, no quality programming for after school. Where do these kids go? We are supporting this bill because we want to help drive long-term solutions forward for youth across the state. And having data and analysis is a critical step in doing so. It is the first step. So we can have what we need to move forward, to prioritize and invest in our youth. Thank you all for considering this bill, and thank you all for allowing me to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Fullman. Mr. McBounce.
Good morning. My name is Cedric McBounds. I'm a father, a mentor, and a core leader of BBCC of Isaiah, and the founder of JOG Foundation. I'm here today speaking in my interests and the children and families whose voices often go unheard. And I stand in full support of the United for Youth campaign bill, not because of statistics or reports, but because I have lived the reality of what happens when our youth have access to strong programs and when they don't. I was raised in North Minneapolis, a community where opportunity and struggle exist side by side. As a child, I saw how after-school programs changed lives, including my own. They gave children mentorship, structure, and a safe space to grow. But I also saw what happened when those programs were underfunded or shut down. Kids didn't just find something else to do, they found the streets.
That's right.
They found gangs, they found trouble. And for many, once they did, it was too late to bring them back. I had friends, good kids with big dreams. who never made it to adulthood, not because they weren't smart enough, not because they didn't have potential, but because the system failed them. Because people who had the power to invest in them just didn't. Now, as a full-time single father of 2 young children, this issue is deeply personal. I have my kids in youth programs because I know the power of positive exposure, the power of teaching them life skills, emotional intelligence, and financial literacy at an early age. These programs don't just keep them busy, they build their futures. They teach them how to dream, how to lead, and how to break the cycle of poverty and violence. But what about the kids whose parents don't have access to these programs? What happens to them? I see the study bill as laying the foundation, the groundwork. Without this groundwork, we risk missing a critical opportunity to build comprehensive, equity-centered approach that truly meets the needs of Minnesota's young people. Please support this important first step, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Members, questions, comments? Senator Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing this bill. Mr. Fuller, your testimony was eloquent and heartbreaking. I think we have a responsibility to make sure that the work that we do doesn't make our kids feel invisible or forgotten or not worth it. This is what you are talking about is something my community has been fighting for over a decade. Down in Burnsville, we have a large Muslim population who have been trying to get a community center, an after-school center for their kids because there aren't programs that are filling this need. And frankly, every single time they bring a project, it gets shut down because it's going to be too much traffic, or it's going to be, that sort of NIMBY quality that continues to shut it out. We cannot allow that to be how we let our kids see how much we're fighting for them. In my community, rent has gone up incredible amounts, and a lot of parents are working 2 or 3 jobs, which means they're even less able to be constantly there for their kids to provide those after-school activities or mentorship or relationships, which means many more children are alone in those hours and find that companionship or mentorship somewhere else. In our community, that is showing up in fentanyl. It's showing up in deaths of our children. And I am really grateful that you're pushing this. It's such a critical piece of the puzzle. And I love that you did the listening sessions statewide, because this is not a Minneapolis need. This is a statewide need. It is a Burnsville need. It is something that is across the state. So thank you very much for your work on this. However I can support it, would love to help.
Thank you.
Other questions? Senator Upton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the testifiers in the stories you had. The information you shared is great. I just don't know that this is a state responsibility to do this programming, but that's how the bill is laid out. I think it's more community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, church by church. I mean, as a group, we do those things because we have needs all across the state, and we hear the needs in our, I happen to be up in northwestern Minnesota. We hear the same thing. But part of this bill, and after they do this study or report back, have you had conversations enough to know what would we plan to do with this information once it's collected, being it's coming in as a statewide project rather than a regional or a community or whatever?
Senator Wiklund.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Utke. I think that having the statewide approach and having the information come back from what statewide needs and what the landscape is around youth programming, I think that will help us be able to make recommendations on where we want to target our resources that we do put into, youth programming. Today, we have some investments as a state in terms of youth programming. They are fairly small compared to other areas of investment, but I think without understanding what the needs are, we don't really know how best to address community needs across the state. So that's why I think it's important to take this step to do the needs assessment.
Senator Utke.
That's all. Thank you.
Other comments, members? I just want to say thank you to Senator Wiklund. I think this is an incredibly important bill, and thank you to our testifiers for doing this work. I think what you said, Senator Utke, puts a spotlight on the issue. It is a statewide problem. You're hearing it all over the place. And I think what I'm about to say may shock you, but it's also an Edina problem. So I'm very proud to be a co-author on this bill, and I thank you for all the work, and thank you for bringing this bill forward, Senator. Any closing remarks?
No, thank you. I appreciate the time, and I really appreciate the testimony.
Okay. So Senate File 2042 will be laid over. Next up, we have Senate File 1049, Senator Maye Quade.
Good morning. Welcome to the committee. Senator Maye Quade.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Senate File 1049 is a simple bill with a really big impact. It prevents the Early Learning Scholarship Program from being cut in half or falling off a budget cliff. I would like to clarify that from my perspective, continuing this investment does not represent new spending, but a continuation of our commitment to this important program. In your packets, you'll see a really huge stack of letters for this bill. Pretty much everyone in Minnesota loves scholarships. It's bipartisan, legislators love it, parents love it, kids love it, providers love it. Child care providers in centers and homes, Kids Count on Us, Lead Care, business organizations like the Minnesota Business Partnership, organizations that support children like People Serving People, and community organizations. You'll see in that handout with quotes from parents who use scholarships, each telling a story of the individual impact of the program on a child or family. And of course, we know that when these stories are taken together, they represent the story of our community and of our state's economy. Like I said, everyone loves scholarships. And yet here's the reality facing the scholarship program. In 2023, I carried a bill that would have funded scholarships for all eligible children. These are children and families earning less than about $55,000 per year for a family of 4. That proposal would have expanded eligibility to families earning up to about $100,000 per year, because we all know that child care costs are crushing middle-class families, and I can attest to that personally. We missed the mark in 2023, but we did appropriate about $200 million for the program. Much of that increase was dependent on one-time funding, and so we do find ourselves with a $100 million funding decrease. And so what does that mean for us? Right now, there are an estimated 8,500 children eligible for scholarships, but left behind because of the lack of funding. On the other side of that cliff, that number jumps to 15,000. If we cannot solve this funding problem, many, many fewer children in the future will have the opportunity to use scholarships. We're talking about children and families experiencing homelessness and foster care or child protection, topics I know you've already covered today, children with parents in chemical dependency or mental health treatment, children who have an incarcerated parent, children and families where domestic violence is present. And an investment in scholarships comes with the potential for one of the highest documented returns on public investment, because it reduces state costs like special education and healthcare, which of course are our major budget drivers. Cutting scholarships is a classic penny-wise, pound-foolish decision. This isn't a luxury. This is an urgent issue. And as legislators, it is our job to work in partnership with a strong and broad group of advocates to figure it out. Our budgeting process is complex. It will require trade-offs, different ways of raising or spending money through appropriations or tax expenditures. But one example, the ongoing cost of this bill is roughly equal to the ongoing cost of data center tax expenditures in Minnesota. In the end, regardless of what budget passes, we will spend tens of billions of dollars. We need scholarships in Minnesota, and I hope that this bill is at the top of the list. And with that, I will turn it over to my incredible testifiers to tell you more about how this project has benefited their families.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, or thank you, Senator Maye Quade. Are you Andrew Schultz?
I am.
Okay. Please state your name for the record and begin.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Wiklund and members of the committee. My name is Andrew Schultz, and I am dad to Amelia and Evelyn, and I live in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. Our family is a recipient of an early learning scholarship, and I'm here to express my support for early learning scholarships being considered in this bill, and I urge members of this committee to vote in support of early learning scholarships. I am a graduate student hoping to become a chaplain, and my wife, Elise Schultz, is an occupational therapist. Our girls were placed in foster care with us when they were newborn, and this last December, Elise and I received the greatest blessing and honor that we could have ever imagined: permanent placement as their legal parents. We first learned about early learning scholarships from the county worker assigned to our girls' case. As foster parents, you often have to make decisions more quickly than families normally would. The early learning scholarship we received meant that costs would not be the first and last factor in our daycare decision, freeing us as parents to have a choice in where our children attend daycare. The early learning scholarships meant we would not only be able to find safe and reliable daycare, but that it would be parent-aware rated, and we could find the best fit for our children's needs. Every family is different, but I believe we are all the same in that we want to know that our children are safe and cared for while they learn and grow, and we as caregivers provide for them. Whether or not children are foster, adoptive, or living with their family of origin, every child deserves this much. The earliest years in a person's life are the most crucial in their development. This is especially true for our daughter Amelia, who has trisomy 21 and is a member of the Down syndrome community. At her present daycare, she is able to be included socially with peers her own age in the same classroom as her twin sister, while also maintaining a safe environment for her unique physical presentation. Being able to make friends her own age has been a benefit not only for her social life, but also for her physical and cognitive development. Her classmates communicate with her at eye level, sharing toys and books, singing songs, and playing games. At home, we have seen the empathy that Amelia has helped to instill in her twin sister, Evelyn. We are certain that she is having the same effect on her peers at daycare as well. And this would not be possible without the dedicated care and attention given by our daycare teachers and administrators. Not only do they help encourage and build these relationships, but they have been able to accommodate Amelia's needs, such as tube feeding, physical adaptations, and visits from school district educators. Amelia is excelling in occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy. The support of her daycare provider has been an exponent factor in these outcomes. There is nothing we would not do for our children. Without the early learning scholarships, it would have meant greater time away from work, having a significant impact on our ability to earn and save for our family's needs. It would have caused further delays to my education, increasing the cost and debt accumulation related to schooling. I shudder to think that the absence of this scholarship may have meant settling for convenience and what that would have meant for their development, especially for Amelia. These scholarships support working families, children, and caregivers seeking to provide the same thing, the care our children deserve. This bill strengthens the economy and creates healthier and safer communities. Few things you will consider this legislative session will have as direct and positive of an impact on working people in our communities as these early learning scholarships being considered in this bill. I urge you to support those early learning scholarships and show your commitment to young children and families in Minnesota. Thank you, Chair Wiklund and members of the committee, and if I may have extra time, I wish to remind everyone that tomorrow, 3/21, March 21st, is World Down Syndrome Day, and Amelia encourages all of you to go learn more from the Down Syndrome Association of Minnesota at dsamn.org for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have 2 testifiers on Zoom, and Maria Steen. If you could please state your name for the record and begin.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Maria Steen. And thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, and to my fellow testifiers and advocates who have such powerful stories that emphasize the necessity of these investments through Senate File 1049. Again, my name is Maria Steen, and I'm the Child Care Connections Director at CAPLP. CAPLP is a community action agency based in Moorhead, and we are driven by our mission to eliminate poverty by empowering families and engaging communities. We provide low and moderate income children and their families comprehensive services and access to resources that provide them a hand up, not a handout. The programs we offer are shaped by an every 3 years community needs assessment that we conduct. And not surprisingly, accessing and paying for high quality childcare regularly appears as the #1 need on these reports from our community members. Minnesota's Early Learning Scholarships program has been a key solution to this critical need for over a dozen years. And for the families who receive a scholarship, as we just heard, it is a huge burden lifted off of their shoulders, and it opens so many doors for those children and their parents. However, for the hundreds and now thousands of families who remain on wait lists across the state, it is a carrot that has been dangled in front of them, keeping doors to opportunities closed for far too long. CAPLP has administered early learning scholarships since 2013. We are currently serving 336 children who reside and attend programming in the 9 counties of West Central Minnesota. And our scholarships are awarded to many of the highest needs families. We have 55% of our recipients meeting one or more of the state's priority areas. But unfortunately, we still have 185 children on our wait list alone. I'm here today to offer our strong support for Senate File 1049, because it would be disastrous for the communities we serve if scholarship funding were to be cut to half of its current level. I have directly administered scholarship for a number of years and now oversee elements of the program, and I've directly seen how scholarships help get our youngest and most valuable learners off on the right foot by attending parent-aware rated programs that give them the building blocks for later success in school and life. And scholarships help parents find work and stay employed in our communities, and it gives them the ability to achieve other positive goals like purchasing homes, since childcare often costs more than rent or mortgage payments. Scholarships support our economies by stabilizing childcare programs with reliable income that keeps their doors open. And all of these impacts lead to thriving communities, especially in our rural areas where childcare is so essential, where children and their parents achieve successful results because of the boost that scholarships give them. Wanted to share one example of that specific boost. We have a client named Alyssa, and she and her 2 children had been homeless when they first came to CAPLP to seek services. They were enrolled in Early Head Start and had a home visitor who was able to help get them into stable housing. So once their basic needs were first and foremost met and stabilized, her home visitor helped her also apply for a scholarship then to address her childcare needs. The elimination of the cost burden and access to reliable childcare through these scholarships also supported other of Alyssa's goals, which included getting her GED and enrolling in college. And I'm happy to tell you that Alyssa did attain that GED, is now currently enrolled in college, and has also been working to support her family ever since. Early learning scholarships specifically for childcare were crucial to changing the trajectory of this family's life. And I know that the state faces critical budget challenges, but I also know what it means to look a parent in the eye and tell them that they have to wait. My understanding is that you all will budget to spend about $60 to $70 billion over the next 2 years, and we implore you to include scholarship funding in that spending plan. This is such an urgent need for our families on our waiting lists. It impacts the quality of day-to-day life for babies and toddlers and parents. It impacts the sustainability of our rural communities, and it really just cannot wait. Thank you so much for your time today, and on behalf of the families who desperately need this funding, we thank you for your support.
Thank you. And next we have Amanda Reed. And Amanda, if you can, we really need to be moving along in our bills, and if you can focus on what's unique to your your experience with the early learning scholarships. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, Chair Wiklund, members of the committee, thank you. My name is Amanda Reed. I'm testifying from the Iron Range, where I run a child care center that cares for 32 children who receive the early learning scholarships. My center capacity is 103, so that's 30% of the children. I'm concerned about the loss of the scholarship funding, firstly, for the low-income children who will lose access to early learning school readiness. We have abundant data to show that childcare changes future potential life outcomes, especially for children with adverse life events, and that's very common in low-income families. My second concern is for the parents of the children. They qualify for the scholarship because they have no extra money to spare. Without the scholarships, they're forced to disenroll their children. They don't have other money to fall back on. They're likely forced to stay home, possibly forced to quit, possibly fired. Lastly, I'm concerned for my employees. I haven't seen a future where I so directly face the loss of staff, but if I lose 30% of our center's revenue, I'm looking at 30% of staffing I need to reduce. I can't fathom that at this time. I reviewed the numbers of our children on the early learning scholarship. 14 of them are in foster care. 14 of them have a broken home. 3 are military children. 13 have survived domestic abuse. There's only one family I have that has 2 parents, and they were part-time when they were on the wait list waiting to get on the ELS scholarship. So I have one family that might survive the loss or reduction to ELS. So I encourage you strongly to pass SF 1049 so kids have a chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions or comments about the bill? Senator Abeler.
Yeah, and I'm a co-author. I like these scholarships all along, and I think they worked out pretty well. I was kind of concerned about the one-time money. And this actually is just more one-time money, but, you know, that's a different discussion. Is that in our budget or is that in the education budget?
Senator Abeler, this is in our budget now.
Okay.
Because of the change to the organization of DCYF.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Well, hope we can find a way to take care of this. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see any. I do think it's it's a program that's demonstrated its importance, and the funding choices we had to make 2 years ago, unfortunately, we weren't able to just continue and say this would be ongoing, but I appreciate your bringing this bill forward so we recognize what the need is, and we'll take a look at what we're given as far as targets go. Senator Maye Quade, any final thoughts?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I know this is new to this committee. It was in Education Finance last year, and I think it's difficult sometimes. I will make a public plea for us to have our own Children, Youth, and Families Committee, because it is hard when you're trying to do a budget for Health and Human Services and then this separately. But, I know it looks like a lot of money, but I would say it's more expensive not to do it than it is to do it for our economy, for our parents, and for the health and well-being of children, too. So I appreciate you giving the time and attention to the bill today, and welcome to the new world of early learning scholarships for your committee. It's going to be quite fun and cute.
Thank you. And Senate File 1049 is laid over for possible inclusion. And members, now we will move to Senator Kupec, Senate File 1897.
It's a great bill. Stick around for the show here.
Thank Senator Kupec. You have Senate File 1897, and although we didn't have early learning scholarships within our committee responsibility last year, we have a lot of early learning and childcare related programs that we do have, still have responsibility for. This is one that I believe that we heard from you, was it last session, and recognize the value of it. Please go ahead and present your bill.
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Last session, and I believe even the session before, so we appropriated a little bit more money last year. This is a grant to child care facility revitalization. As you may recall, we established this in 2021, initially funded it with American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We were able to extend that last year, as you mentioned, with $1.125 million in state funds. To date, the child care facility revitalization grant program has improved the safety and quality of thousands of child care settings across the state. And then this is the part that I always find amazing. By doing that, we opened up 7,000 new child care slots. So the return on investment on this program is really good. The volume of requests greatly exceeded the federal funds available. So Senate File 1897, as introduced, would appropriate $2.5 million to continue the facility revitalization program. The average grant award of approximately $9,000. This program provides a fantastic return on investment, as I mentioned before. It helps bridge the financing gap, particularly for small, rural, and BIPOC-owned or culturally specific providers who often struggle to find private sector financing. With that, I have a testifier, and I will also add the money, too, from last year because of some of the deadlines. A lot of the applicants were for projects because the deadline was kind of coming up in the spring. We did a lot of indoor projects, I think, with the last round of money, so there are still outdoor projects that, fencing and things like that can help also. That would be helpful to get going.
Great, thank you. Ms. Pearl, if you could please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Suzanne Pearl. I'm the Minnesota Director for First Children's Finance. Before I start, I want to point out a couple of things that are in your packet. The first is an impact report that we did last year, which is kind of an overview of the program as it was with the first round of funding. The second is a supplement that just adds the comprehensive total impact, including the money that we were able to fund this year with this year's funding. I'd like to thank Senator Kupec for once again authoring this bill. And I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you today about the Minnesota Child Care Facility Grants Program. First Children's Finance has implemented this program since 2022 through a contract with DCYF, initially funded with American Rescue Plan Act funds. The aim of the program is to provide funding for child care businesses to address critical facility maintenance and repair issues, knowing that they are required to meet certain facility-related safety standards to maintain licensing, and knowing that many child care businesses do not have the cash flow or access to capital required to do even minor repairs. The program set a grant award cap of $20,000 for centers and $15,000 for licensed family child care. Applications were evaluated based on how much the funds would impact health and safety of kids, whether they address licensing needs, and the level of child care need in their location, among other factors. All providers in Minnesota were eligible for this program, including family child care and including privately owned child care centers, which is a bit different from other child care facility grants programs. As Senator Kupec mentioned, our average grant is around $9,000. If a provider needs to replace a fence or flooring or ensure that their facility is safe, this grant helps them afford that cost without having to resort to credit cards or a HELOC or other high-cost financing. Last year, the legislature provided funding to extend the program for one more year. We accepted applications in November of 2024 for the one round of grants we're able to fund this year. We received 650 applications. We were able to fund 104 of those, so about 1 in 6. So the need for this grant program remains. One of the things that we're most proud of in this program is the program integrity measures we built into the design of the program. If awarded a grant, grantees receive 90% of the funding up front, and they have about 6 months to complete their projects. They then have to submit receipts, documentation, and photographic evidence of their completed project to receive the final 10% of their award. If they spent less than the full award, or we discovered that some of the funds were used for ineligible items, they would not receive the 10% and or would be invoiced for the difference from their initial 90% payment. They are also required to stay in business for 2 years after receiving the grant. We are happy to report that the grant compliance rate has been very high for this program. Of the almost 3,500 grants we made, only about 2% have been reported to the DHS Office of Inspector General for noncompliance, and we do know that OIG has followed up with those grantees. We have now also had 2 independent audits of the program, both successfully completed with no findings. As we've learned, small grants can make a big impact, helping child care providers make better use of their space so that they could increase enrollment within their licensed capacity. While this might be 1 or 2 new child care slots at a time for a family provider or a newly opened classroom in a center, grantees have told us, as Senator Kupec mentioned, that this program has created more than 7,800 new child care slots in Minnesota. This program shows that you can increase the availability of childcare by investing in existing childcare businesses. Without funding from the legislature, this program will end. We have heard from countless providers who have told us how much these grant funds have changed not just the financial sustainability of their business, but also their ability to stay in business. They also stress how positively these grants have impacted the children and families they serve. Minnesota can and should be proud of this investment in child care facilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions or comments about this bill? I don't see any questions. I really appreciate your detailed response and the information you provided us in the packet, so we have that. And it's great to know that you were able to, make use of the money, but it's also really, you can see that there is a pressing need for funds like this to go out to providers. So, Senator Kupec, any final thoughts?
No, Madam Chair, just thank Senator Boldon for also being a co-author on the bill.
All right. Well, Senate File 1897 is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you. Senator Kunesh. Welcome to the committee, Senator Kunesh, and we have 3 of your bills, and we have a little over half an hour, so we're hoping that you can help us try to get through things that are, that can be summarized, or if you have your testifiers summarized, so we can make it through all 3 bills. So, Senator Kunesh, you have Senate File 1547.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and members. This is a bill to appropriate dollars to the Office of Foster Care Ombudsperson. This bill represents a critical step towards ensuring that the voices of Minnesota foster youth are not just heard, but given the necessary attention and support. The creation of the Office of Foster Youth Ombudsperson is a direct response to the advocacy efforts of those who have experienced foster care in Minnesota. And after hearing from fosters, it was recognized that an independent agency was needed to oversee the experiences of those in foster care and address the challenges that they might face when they are in care. In 2022, the idea gained bipartisan support and was passed as a standalone bill to create this office. It opened in early 2024. It supports 10,000 foster youth currently living in Minnesota. Our foster kids face really unique challenges and struggles, especially as they are aging out of foster care. And so this bill is an appropriation to expand their capacity and the ability to meet with foster youth where they live, whether in family foster homes, group homes, residential, and out-of-state facilities. This bill will allow the office to support 2 FTEs to engage in proactive outreach to ensure that Minnesota fosters are aware that this omnibus office even exists and is a resource to facilitate their efforts to educate fosters around their rights and empower them to advocate for themselves. So this is a really important, critical, proactive approach, and I do have 2 testifiers.
Thank you. First, we have Misty Kuntz and Vivian Dudley. Yeah, they can both come up. Welcome to the committee, and please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair and members. For the record, my name is Misty Kuntz, and I am the Ombudsperson with the Office of the Foster Youth Ombudsperson, often referred to as OOFI. In addition to being a social worker with over 15 years of experience working in child welfare, I also identify as a foster. From my knowledge, I am at least the third generation of my family to have experienced foster care. You already heard a bit about our office from Senator Kunesh giving the overview, from my coworker Hannah Planell earlier, and so I just wanted to talk with you specifically about this request that we have. Prior to UFI's creation, there was not a clear path for fosters when they were experiencing a violation of their rights. The opening of our office in May of 2024 was a significant step in addressing a critical gap in our system, a dedicated agency that offers fosters a safe, neutral space to raise and solve concerns. We recognize that in order for our office to be truly effective, our outreach to fosters has to be proactive, intentional, and ongoing, and not merely reactive, waiting for them to contact us. Since opening last year, we've received over 130 complaints and concerns from people in 36 counties, 20% of which have come directly from fosters, and we want to see that percentage significantly increase. If we aren't hearing directly from foster youth, we can't be sure that we are responding to their needs. We are very unique as a state agency because we are here to listen to children and youth. The fosters we serve are often experiencing instability and isolation from supports. We know this not only from the data our state collects, but also from our own experiences. 4 of our current 6 staff have personal experience in foster care. Based on lessons that we learned from our ombuds colleagues in other states, we know that the most effective outreach to foster youth is through proactive, in-person connections. For example, the Ombuds office in Texas shared that the vast majority of the concerns brought to their attention occurred when they were doing youth outreach. Our office needs to be able to see for ourselves the condition of the facilities our Minnesota foster youth are in and be sure that they can share their concerns with us privately. The Ombuds office in New Hampshire visited their youth in a Tennessee facility and identified concerns so egregious that the facility was closed. We need Minnesota to follow suit. This appropriation would fully support 2 full-time positions to conduct outreach to fosters, including in-person visits to facilities in Minnesota, but also to the 75-plus Minnesota foster youth that are in out-of-state facilities. We also want to create youth-friendly materials about foster youth rights to share with them and have the additional capacity to connect with stakeholders that can help spread the word about our office. The goal of these roles is to equip fosters with tools and knowledge so that they feel empowered to navigate the very often confusing nature of the foster care system. We want to go beyond simply delivering information, but also establishing trust and opening a line of communication to our office so that fosters know where to turn for support before and when problems arise. Currently in foster care, when a young person enters foster care, there is not a requirement or system in place to make sure that they are informed about their rights and that they are made aware of the resources available to them, including UFI. Getting this information is dependent on whether it's part of their caseworker or attorney's practice. The resources that do exist are not comprehensive, actionable, or accessible, and that leaves fosters vulnerable and unable to advocate for themselves when their rights are being violated or when facing other challenges in the system. And so because of that, we ask for this increased appropriation to help us fully realize our statutory charge in serving and supporting all Minnesota foster youth. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we're happy to answer questions that you might have.
Thank you. Ms. Dudley, if you could please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Vivian Dudley. Thank you, Chair and members. For the record, my name is Vivian Dudley, like I have stated. I am a foster, a woman of God, a social work student at St. Kate's University, and a passionate advocate for my foster community. In preparing to speak before the committee today about the importance of educating fosters about their rights and the existence of UFI, I reflected on what this could have meant for me. While I was in foster care, I never knew I had any rights as a foster. No one ever told me that when the state entered my life, I had additional protections as a young person. No one ever took the time to pause and assure me that my well-being mattered, even if the state was my parent. Looking back, I realized how different my experience could have been. I know if I hadn't been informed that I had rights as a foster, significant aspects of my case could have changed for the better. I would have known what questions to ask and what to look out for to protect myself from the harm I was experiencing. As a teen parent in foster care, I didn't know I had the right to have custody of my child or even to care for her. Had I known, I would have held my workers accountable and felt empowered to advocate for both myself and my daughter. I would have fought for the right to be active in her life, attend her doctor's appointments, advocate to live with her in independent living housing, access my EFC stipend, and not having to tolerate being court-ordered to shelters in the middle of a reunification case, and receive support to develop independent living skills. If I had known my rights, I truly believe that I would have my daughter today. As young people navigating a complex system, our requests for support and our needs to be met are often viewed as manipulative, irrational, and emotional responses. They are not met with understanding or reason, but dismissed and belittled if ever acknowledged, adding more trauma to our already turbulent lives. By empowering fosters with knowledge of their rights, it empowers my community to know the standard of care they deserve to receive from the adults charged with the duty of supporting and caring for them. Like many of my fosters, I'm here today because of the disadvantages I faced and because I want to ensure no one else goes through what I went through. UFI plays an important role in educating fosters and providing a neutral and confidential space for fosters to truly be heard. Had this office and outreach existed during my time in care, I don't think I would have felt so isolated and alone. I believe the ongoing injustices in my case and fellow peers would have not reached the extent that it did. I believe it is crucial that young people know UFI is here and what the state ensures the office has the capacity to meet fosters where they are at. We need someone to bridge the gap of hope, to remind us that we are important, that we have a voice, and that we deserve care and justice. This office and outreach reminds us that I matter, my daughter mattered, my story matters, and so does the stories that my community is experiencing. That there are people who are doing everything they can to ensure our well-being is considered in the chaos. Social workers' role in the court are to ensure the well-being of the child, a guardian ad litem for the best interest, lawyers to speak on what the youth wants, and a judge to make this ruling. But who's holding everyone accountable for the choices that will affect fosters, especially when it's negative? With UFI, this ensures that primary focus stays on fosters, our well-being, our knowledge, and future success in the community. In a democracy, the ultimate authority lies within the citizens who have the right to participate in decision-making. I believe there should be no different for fosters in their own communities. Thank you for the opportunity for me to express my support on this bill, and I urge you to please consider passing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your story and advocating for so many others like you. Members, do you have any questions or comments about the bill? No? Well, seeing none, Senator Kunesh, any final thoughts?
Just that I want to thank both of you for coming in here and sharing your stories, but if you really understand the significance of this ombuds role and the work that two people are doing right now, it is absolutely extraordinary. There's more work that needs to be done and can be done to ensure that things like what we've just heard here are not happening. There was just a really great article on NPR the other day. I was listening as I drove into the Capitol about some of the injustices against foster care kids, especially as they are getting older and aging out. And anything that you can do to support this office would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And Senate File 1547 is laid over for possible inclusion. Next, we'll move to Senate File 1548 and Senator Kunesh. And again, I would just ask if any of the testifiers can make sure you're very much to the point. We do have about 20 minutes left and we have two bills, and we want to make sure that if there are member questions and discussion that we can get to that. Senator Kunesh.
Okay, so we have Senate File 1548. This is modifying the Northstar Care for Children benefits for children under the age of 6 and children transferred into the Northstar Care for Children. Northstar Care for Children is a financial benefit for children placed in foster care, children whose custody has been transferred to a relative or kin, and children who are adopted. The Northstar Kinship Assistance and Northstar Adoption Assistant improves permanency for children by increasing the number of children who transition from foster care into permanent family. Therefore, it provides ongoing stable benefits to the children based on the level of care needed to support the child's needs and strengths. Northstar's benefits typically end at age 18, and we know that the care and the cost does not end at the age of 18. And so this could extend it up to a child's 21st birthday. By increasing the financial benefits, it would provide long-term stability, helps support keeping families together, helps siblings stay together, which is so important. And there was a study released just last year about Northstar's benefit for children for 6 years and older. So those children who have experienced foster care on an average have lower test scores than those who haven't experienced foster care. They also have lower school attendance, along with a higher likelihood to be given out-of-school suspensions, change schools, and use state-provided mental health services. These payments would increase raised average academic achievement by about 31% based on outcomes recorded 3 years after that child was adopted. It will also help to improve school stability and reduce school suspensions, and would raise the chance of moving from foster care to adoption or kin guardianship by 29%, approximately 5 months earlier. And so there's more I could go on to talk about, but we do have 2 testifiers, and I'd like you to hear from them first.
First, I have Sadie Hart. If you could please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Sadie Hart, and I am the Policy and Advocacy Director at the Ainda Young Center in St. Paul. Ainda Young means our home in Ojibwe, and we provide a healing place within the community for American Indian youth and families to thrive in safety and wholeness. As mentioned, this bill would provide essential financial assistance to kinship caregivers and relatives who step in to care for children when their parents are unable to do so. When grandparents, aunts, uncles, and even older siblings open their homes to care for their young relatives, their commitment to keeping children within the family unit is commendable and aligns with the best interest of the child. However, many of these caregivers face significant financial challenges as they often live on fixed incomes or have not planned for the sudden addition of children to their households. Families may struggle to provide basic necessities and additional needs for children when they want to care for them. Without adequate financial support, there's the heartbreaking possibility of placing the children back in the foster care system solely due to economic constraints. Lack of financial resources for kinship caregivers often results in children remaining in the child protection system longer than necessary. This not only places additional strain on the foster care system, but also disrupts the child's sense of stability and belonging. Prolonged stays in the system can lead to emotional and psychological challenges for the children, including attachment issues and academic difficulties. Moreover, the financial strain on caregivers can lead to inadequate access to medical care, educational resources, and other essential resources for children. This situation exacerbates the trauma experienced by these young individuals and hinders their development and well-being. In one county I work with, there is an uncle providing foster care to 2 siblings, ages 13 and 4, and he wasn't sure if he would be able to financially care for the younger child at the reduced rate. His choices were to split the siblings up and have the younger child move into a non-relative placement, take custody of both children and face financial instability in the future, or allow the county to keep the younger child in foster care until she turns 6 and can receive the full benefits, which is what he chose to do. This may solve the financial issue, but it prolongs the family's interactions with child protection and takes away direct services and resources from other families in the system. With this bill, we can extend financial assistance to all kinship caregivers, ensuring that children can remain with their families in a stable and nurturing environment. This support will not only alleviate the economic burdens faced by caregivers, but also promote better outcomes for the children involved. This is a compassionate and necessary step to strengthen our families and communities, ensuring that every child has an opportunity to live within a loving family setting. Thank you for this time and considering this bill.
Thank you. And next I have a testifier on Zoom, Michaela Maxwell. If you could please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Michaela Maxwell, and good morning, Madam Chair and members. I'm here to testify in support of Senate File 1548. I come from various tribes, from the Ihamtoanoyate in South Dakota, Red Lake, Anishinaabe, and Kewame and Pueblo. And from these tribes, I was raised in their traditions and values, and because of that, I became a relative foster provider to my relatives' children who were 7 and 3 years old at the time. And throughout the course of their CPS case, they were, pushing towards permanency, and I wanted that for them. For me, the goal was for me. Plan B was for me, to be the legal and physical custodian of them. But one of my dilemmas was, because of the youngest being, the preschool age, he was 3, 4 around the time, and they both had various diagnoses, and I just wanted to more information on how I could best support them in their services lifelong, since I love them so much, and they're mine, they're part of my life, and I just want them to have all the best and support for their various needs. Already, my youngest, unfortunately, was let go from a couple of daycares, and I needed to have a plan A through Z. And with the funding and with the county holding off on finalizing until he was 6, I could make those plans, make those arrangements for them. But it was unfortunate we had to wait so long until he turned 6. And it's still hard, but I feel better secured and supported from that full funding since he is 6 now. And I'm excited to still continue to support them and help them become as independent as they can. And they're such wonderful, beautiful little kids, and they light up my life every day, and they make me laugh, and I'm so thankful that, they entered my life, and I'm so happy to have them be connected, and happy that we do have that support now that, everything was finalized this year in January. So, yeah, that's it. Pidamia Wopida.
Thank you very much. Next, I have one more testifier sign up, Josh Kroll. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and begin.
My name is Josh Kroll. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I am the program manager of the Adoption Subsidy Resource Center, which is a program of Families Rising. I track all 50 states and Canadian provinces' adoption subsidy programs or adoption assistance programs. And I actually testified on behalf of Northstar Care in 2013. The purpose of Northstar Care was to equalize the rates. That was after a Minnesota permanency demonstration project, a Title 4E waiver program, but it didn't equalize it for children exiting permanency to guardianship or adoption. They got 50%. I'm going to share some national perspective because that's what I think I can add extra to this. There are only a few states that have percentages mentioned in policy or statute. In the state of Washington, younger children can negotiate up to 50 or 80% of the foster care rate, while teenagers it's up to 95%. If that's the time when they go to adoption, that's their age. The state of Virginia sets negotiations starting at 70%, and New York used to say it couldn't be less than 75%. So the state of Minnesota having a maximum amount of 50% of the foster care rate for younger children is quite an outlier. Thankfully, we don't have negotiation. If the child qualifies for that rate, they get either the 100% or the 50%. But Minnesota, capping it at 50% of the foster care rate is very unusual compared to the rest of the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you very much for providing that additional context. Members, do you have any questions or comments about the bill? Senator Otke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick one. Because of what it's doing, do we have any idea on the cost at this point?
Senator Kunesh, we did submit a request for a fiscal note. I don't think it's returned yet.
We haven't received it
We're
yet.
still waiting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Senator Abeler.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and no criticism, but it's just too bad we don't have enough. These are really complicated topics, and I respect everything about the schedules we have, but having weighed into this and trying my part, I learn things every time, and the first bill we had today and this stuff here, it's really important. It touches so many lives. It's so sensitive. And how do you make it work the best it can be? And I thank every author who has got a piece of this. But anyway, just commend the effort. And
Thank you.
thanks for the national experts. And I wish I could ask you 10 questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, it does seem, it seems like it would be, it'd be really life-changing, as we heard from testifiers, to be able to make this change to the funding level so that kids have that support, all through their lives. We will get the fiscal note back and then, obviously look at that in light of our budget this year. So any just final words about this bill, or do you want to
just thank you so much. When you hear the stories about siblings being separated because of this, it's extremely heartbreaking. And the long-term effects in so many different ways is certainly funding this outweighs those future effects. And just thanks to Senator Abeler and Senator Boldon for being part of this bill.
Thank you. Senate File 1548 is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you. And Senator Kunesh, you have the last bill is Senate File 1898, and you have, there is an A1 amendment. Is that an author's amendment you'd like us to adopt?
Yes, please, the A1 amendment.
Senator Mann moves the A1 amendment. Members, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The A1 amendment is adopted. Senator Kunesh.
All right, so Senate File 1898 is to perform a transparent, independent, external analysis of the complex streams of funding available in Minnesota's child welfare system to better understand and develop opportunities to identify additional federal and state funds into preventative services for counties, tribes, and families that need them. Minnesota relies too heavily on our county and tribal partners to carry the big financial burden for our child protection system. And as compared to many other states, Minnesota is a state that invests a lower amount into the child welfare system and people impacted by that system. And we also rely very much on the county funding that comes from our county tax dollars. Last year, Minnesota spent, or 2 years ago, Minnesota spent about $700 million in child welfare system, and the county share was 41.4. Only the state has a higher share, and only one other state is even close. Nationally, the local share is about 10%. So this bill gives Minnesota an opportunity to gain more nuance and complex understanding of available funding, but also provides critical external and independent oversight into how Minnesota is investing and spending its fund in the child welfare system to counties, tribes, community providers, and families. And I believe we have one testifier here.
Thank you. And we have Dr. Tracy La Liberté. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Dr. Tracy La Liberté, and I'm here from the School of Social Work at the University of Minnesota, where I run a research and training center for child welfare. In my assessment of the activities required in this bill, it positions the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, county and tribal child welfare agencies, and the legislature to have critically important data available for the engagement and discussion about future funding for the Minnesota child welfare system. Before we get into what we don't know, I thought we would talk about what we do know. We know that Minnesota is one of 2 states with the lowest state contribution, as the senator just said. Minnesota relies heavily on our county and tribal partners to carry the majority of the funding burden for the child protection system through property tax dollars and other tribal funds. As compared to many other states, Minnesota invests the lower amount into the child welfare system and the people impacted by that system. Counties and tribes must manage and mix local, state, and federal funding sources to be able to provide the services. In addition, because the reliance on local funding, our child welfare system can be significantly under-resourced, particularly in some areas with the highest level of need. As we continue to operate in this context, we need to better understand the financial landscape in order to better plan for the funding that is necessary for children and families. So we know that Minnesota shares a common challenge with other states and that we have made many attempts at reform over the years. We know that child welfare systems are complex and involve a variety of professionals, including social workers, judges, attorneys, law enforcement, mental and behavioral health practitioners, and many, many more. Nationally and in Minnesota, we have seen that change or reform is expensive, taxing on the workforce, and most problematic, it's difficult to sustain. I suggest to you that one reason for this is what we do not know. In Minnesota, we do not know the full composition and the gaps in the financial foundation of the child welfare services. When reform efforts are implemented, finances are examined in the context of that one specific change. We don't ever really get the full scope of how it integrates into the rest of the financial landscape. If an aspect of that funding is eliminated or repurposed, the reform slowly drifts away. This bill moves Minnesota into a position of understanding its fiscal health, risks, and opportunities. We will be able to understand what funding is being accessed and maximized and what funding is being left untapped. These untapped dollars stand to offer critically needed services and resources across Minnesota. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our current federal landscape. We do not know what lies ahead in terms of federal funding for child welfare services. While child welfare has not yet experienced direct cuts in the ways that other social services have, conducting an analysis like this allows us to get the scope of what is currently available. So if some funding streams are curtailed, we are aware of potential other resources that we may be able to follow as pathways for funding. Child welfare funding is one of the most complicated funding streams in all of human services. Critical to this bill is having an external and independent analysis into how Minnesota is investing and spending its funds in the child welfare system. For communities, for counties, and tribes, community service providers, and families. The report produced will, as a result of this bill, will provide essential transparency as well. In addition to the comprehensive financial analysis, this bill gives Minnesota an opportunity to gain a greater understanding of child welfare programs, practices, and services. While it is doubtful that Minnesota would ever have a traditional practice model due to its organization as state oversight, county administered, a common practice framework is likely and would advantage children, families, and youth across the state. One final thought. Many constituent groups and individuals have come together to help draft and support this effort, including the state, counties, the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, community advocates, and service providers. It is rare in child welfare to have all of those groups in one place supporting a bill. Thank you.
Thank you. We had one other testifier sign up. I don't know if she's present. Charlotte Joy Lipa. I don't see her present. Okay. Members, any questions about this bill? Senator Abeler.
Well, and thanks for the comment. And we again talked about the complexity, and I welcome the effort. But I just Not sure where the math works out if this is going to be affordable, but it seems to me, having created a whole new department to talk about this, we should just make them do this, and they could convene these people at a meeting, and almost everybody on the list you've got there is a paid person. You have a few public people you can bring in. So, I mean, if you're trying to figure this out, I suggest we put it right where we created that department to try to get after this and make it a duty out of available funds. And, I mean, I just don't think you're getting the money, but anyway, that's my advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Radke.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Abeler and I were on the same wavelength. I was going to say, why do we need to go outside and get an outside third-party consultant? That should be part of the duties of the department. I know that they're new, that the pieces are coming together, but that should be their primary goal, is to do what this bill is asking them to do. And the fact that the counties are carrying a heavy load on this is unacceptable, so I'm glad that's a topic of conversation, that this needs to, hopefully we can lighten their load in the end, but I would fully like you to check out and see if you can, I mean, to me, it's the commissioner's job.
Okay.
And so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Senator Kunesh, we will get a fiscal note back on this. I do think it's information that should be available, some of it, and I know some of it will need to be gathered, but we'll take it into consideration and when we get the fiscal note back. So thank you. Thank you for presenting today, and thank you for coming to testify.
Thank you for these hearings.
And Senate File 1898, as amended, is laid over for possible inclusion. And we are at the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned.